Welcome to the Dawg and Gus show, now on Feel It Radio.
What's up, Dawg?
Gus, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
We had a nice little Saturday gig, eh?
Oh my God, was that a lot of fun or what?
Oh man, it was crazy. We did this CD release party. James Leclaire, everyone, by the way. Yeah. The legend.
Not my CD release
legend.
party.
No, he's got like a double album coming. But,
But we have to wait patiently.
Yeah.
There's other things in the mix.
I've been patient myself.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Well, thanks for coming, James.
Oh, thanks for asking me. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Last minute call and
Yeah, the last minute call, he was there
Yeah.
by the phone waiting. I know.
Yeah. I think Dawg and Gus do Monday
I
nights.
took a call me.
who's the most desperate? James Leclaire. We'll call him.
Well, no, the reason I think that Dawg had a great idea, let's talk about songwriters, and one of the best songwriters we know on our show for sure has been you.
Oh
Because
wow, that's
you're super prolific, and you do, I think it resonated with me when you sang the first time you were on the show, and I know that Dawg for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's great to have you back, man.
awesome.
It's nice to have that input too, like as opposed to just Gus and I saying, yeah, we like this because of this, but I mean, you have a little bit more of an insight
Yeah.
into the whole process.
What art pieces did you get done? Like there was two songwriters that you had done by Lynette.
Oh yeah, that was Bob Dylan and Tom Waits.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Those are nice pieces. I remember you posted like both pictures.
Oh yeah, they're massive. They're 7 feet tall.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's something I had been wanting for years and didn't really have the space or the cash. And then when I finally did, I was like, I want these in this spot. So it looks so good in the house too.
Nice.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
awesome.
She's extremely talented.
Oh yeah, super nice stuff.
Yeah, cool. So when we think of singer-song or just songwriters, we're not going to go singer-songwriters, right? We're just going to go songwriters.
Yeah.
We can go either because a lot of these guys are both.
That's right.
ladies.
Yeah, we could always mention that they do sing as well, and plus when we say the name, people will obviously know that they sing.
Right, and of course we went to the internet to get our list, so it's all subjective. Don't get angry with us if we say number one and you don't agree with us.
Well, number one to each of us as well, I think would be a good idea, and then also bringing up some people. Like I'm going to bring a different flavor to mine.
You are.
Yeah, and just
And I'm
because
sure
I get
James will.
influenced by that. I mean, James has his. And
Yeah.
let's do it.
All right, go ahead.
I have my first one on my list was Loretta Lynn.
Oh wow.
You know, Loretta Lynn.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that was the first one that came on this list anyway.
As your favorite?
No, but in the top, so I have 35, and I'm starting from the bottom to the top.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Okay, so she's your 35th.
Yeah.
Okay. You said the first one that came to mind.
No, there's so many better ones, trust me, but I just think that Loretta Lynn was one on the list. She had a 60-year career.
Mm-hmm.
24 of her tracks would become number one singles. 11 of her albums also reaching the top spot. So she's pretty prolific and pretty talented.
And also breaking through when women weren't key songwriters at the time, right?
Yeah.
Like to push through past all these men and get those hits.
Yeah.
So there would have been a tough hill to climb
Yeah.
for that alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Her and Tammy Wynette, right? The two of them and
Dolly.
Dolly's on our list.
Oh yeah, Dolly's an amazing writer for sure, and such a good storyteller. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Now, most of the guys on this list are definitely that, right? Like storytellers. And like I was telling Gus before we started, is just depending on what list you look at, it's completely different. Like I was looking at a couple lists where it's just the rock genre, right? And you've got, your list that we'll talk about, and then there's no mention of like very little country. But then you go to the country list and you get the big hit, like Harlan Howard.
Right.
Not a lot of people can know who he is.
I don't.
But he's all over 60s and 70s country.
Yeah.
All over, and songs you would know, like really.
That
Yeah.
other performers have done too.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So I just threw that name out there for fun.
Just to screw with everybody's
Yeah, it's
mind.
just to mess with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, James? You got someone?
Oh.
Comes to mind?
Well, I won't start with my top favorite right away, but like one of my favorites is Chris Christopherson. Like,
Yes, sir.
and it's so funny because so many people know him from acting,
Yes.
especially at our age or 10 years younger or something.
Blade
But
comes to mind.
Blade is a big one.
Huge. Yeah.
He was in Payback with Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
That was a good
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
But he was in movies in the 60s and 72, like Billy the Kid,
Mm-hmm.
and but his songwriting is just fantastic, and how he got into his career is amazing. So.
Yeah, the story with Johnny Cash is a great one.
Yeah, he was a janitor at Columbia Records, and he tried to pass tapes to Johnny, and Johnny, no thanks, and then eventually he rented a helicopter because he was a pilot in Vietnam, and he ended up landing in Cash's backyard with Sunday Morning Coming Down, and said, "Please." Johnny came out with the shotgun. I might have told this on your last show. Actually,
I don't think
okay,
so.
no. So Johnny came out with a shotgun. He goes, "Jesus Christ, it's the janitor, right?" And then he's like, "I got to see you have to listen to it," and he listened to it, and he said, "I have to record Sunday Morning Coming Down," which became a huge hit. So. Yeah, which just a beautiful story.
And to add to that story too, because Johnny had his own show back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
And
I know that too.
he had Christopherson on, and the guys running the show, the higher ups are like, "You cannot say this word. You cannot say this word. You're gonna have to change these words in this song."
It was Sunday Morning Coming Down.
Yes, it was.
You can't sing Getting High.
Yeah, and stoned. You weren't allowed to say those
Stoned,
words. And Christopherson was like devastated. Right? He's like, "Well, that's not what I wrote. How I wrote it." And then Cash went, "I got you, buddy," and he went and did it anyway.
Yeah, did it anyway.
So,
Alive. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
live.
said he wouldn't, but he did.
Yeah, he told the higher ups, "Yeah, okay, gotcha,"
Yeah.
and then he went and sang it the way that Christopherson wrote it.
Yeah.
It sounds like Johnny Cash.
No, it
And then the show was cancelled a year later.
Yeah, but those variety shows,
Exactly.
they didn't last.
No,
very
no,
long.
2 or
None of-
3 years
None of
back
them did. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did he? He was in this like a version of The Star Is Born too, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But did he write all that music for that?
He and Streisand.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I didn't
Yeah,
know
talented man. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's also a Rhodes Scholar. Like he's a very smart man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His stuff, as he gets older too, and his voice gets more raspy, and just I love music by someone who sounds aged, right?
Yeah.
That they're like, I'm singing with experience. These stories are, from my 70 years alive. Just, and not that Cash wrote it, but we're talking about Cash, but Hurt, the Trent Reznor
Yeah.
song that Trent Reznor says now that's a Johnny Cash song. It's not my song anymore.
Yeah.
He goes, because of how he owned it.
Yeah.
But hearing that old voice just.
Well, it's
so
more
deep.
believable, right? When you
Yeah.
get somebody singing about life and heartache and stuff, and they're in their 70s, they've got a few,
Yeah,
miles behind them, as opposed to, say, Taylor Swift talking about it when but I mean, she's still, again, a good songwriter.
Oh yeah,
but,
of course. Yeah.
But her life experience is.
But it comes down to and this is why some songwriters write songs but don't perform them too. It's who is the actor to put on the stage for a play or for a movie, right? Like you may have written the script, let's say, but you're not the right person who can send that message out. So some songwriters will write and then someone else sing the song because they can just sell it better, right?
Yeah.
Their stage performance and their persona on stage. So.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. Who do you got next? You want to go with one of your faves? Throw one out there.
Like of all time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
mean,
we'll reference the list, but I mean, just throw it one. for
yeah, I
everybody.
mean, I have Jay-Z on the list of all people because he did write a lot of hip hop
Yeah.
songs that were
Yeah.
huge. I have to say David Bowie. I mean, David Bowie is, for me as a songwriter, some of the music that resonated for me with him was all of his, the years that he was the Starjet guy, Star Boy or whatever they called him. What was it?
Ziggy Stardust.
Ziggy Stardust, and he was
Yeah.
also the Duke, and he was a slim. He had a whole bunch of different personas
Yeah.
during
Which-
the years.
The thing I think I like about it is his music did change over time and
Yeah.
how he
Yeah.
kind of, like you mentioned, aging and whatever else, but it just sort of, I think his 80s music for me, even though his 70s music's amazing, but, like Let's Dance, like that song just like kicks ass.
Yeah,
It still
China
does,
Girl
right?
and
Like
stuff.
that whole
That was
album.
all great stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Bowie's just cool. I just thought he was like the coolest dude.
Yeah, well, he just kept. Like you said, he changed with. Like he didn't stop being him, but he just kind of. He's a chameleon, right? A musical chameleon of sorts.
What's
I don't
your
just
favorite Bowie song?
My favorite Bowie song. I like Ziggy Stardust.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
James?
I never listened to Bowie.
No?
I'm just too young. I really never did though. Like my music, I grew up in a very small town of 8,000 people, right? And I was like followed whatever my parents listened to, and then eventually, 12, I became a skateboarder and got into punk rock, and then punk rock carried me through into my, mid 20s, and that's when I started to look at other stuff. I always thought this stuff from the 70s and 80s was like parent music, like, oh, that's old stuff, that's not cool.
Yeah.
And then I started to, get into the Stones and, Paul Simon or like anything, and started to go, wow, I was really, Zeppelin, and it's like I really missed out on a lot of good stuff because I was ignorant to it as a child.
Well, you were just focused on what you liked at the time.
Yeah, and that suited my lifestyle. So I never got into to into Bowie. Clearly, I know who he is, and I've heard some of his songs, but nothing that I could say that's my favorite.
Gotcha.
I think because I am younger than the panel here, I'm the youngest. No.
Damn, he claimed it. Just because you shaved and aren't showing your grace.
True that.
Yeah.
But like the thing with Bowie for me was I had older siblings, so they, you know, the 80s stuff did resonate because I was quite young. And then when you hear like Let's Dance or that album, you know, China Girl and all that, and actually Iggy Pop's version of China Girl's pretty good too, by the way. But you know, the funny thing about them two is they both kind of got sober together in Germany of all places, and like because I think they were big heroin addicts at the time, and they both got sober in Germany, and then I think Bowie wrote China Girl, and Iggy did the version, but then later on Bowie does it in the 80s.
Yeah.
So it was like an interesting story. I mean, I think that Bowie just had a lot of these rock stars and artists back from the 60s, 70s, and 80s have these amazing like stories. Like I mean like you know like and that's where all their music comes from, right? Yeah. But crazy stories, man, like crazy.
Have you ever read? You should do if you ever did an episode yet on biographies, like musician biographies, the best books.
Oh really?
That would be
That's a great idea.
Life by Keith Richards.
Reading that right
it's
now.
It's about that. Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like crazy. Just even how they came together and everything. I'm off.
No.
Songwriting here for a second, but
we love this. That's what.
Yeah, it's really neat.
We're gonna be talking about Keith Richards anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, actually, speaking of books that are great too, is Slash's biography is unbelievable too.
I haven't. Does that have a bottle on the front of it?
It's him like in black and white with a cigarette in his mouth.
Motley Crue was the bottle.
Yeah.
Crue
the Dirt, right?
The Dirt. Yeah.
They did actually a movie about it.
Yeah, the movie was intense.
Yeah. Well, they were intense, man. They were crazy.
It was a different time, right? For sure.
Just like the first scene.
My book's gonna suck compared to those books.
Nice. Now, for me, I went like my top guy is probably Rodney Crowell.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
from that genre, from you know.
Yeah. Well, that's your.
Yeah, I love that stuff. He's awesome.
He's fantastic. Actually, we were texting back and forth a little while ago, and you're like, "Do you own any LPs by Rodney?"
Yes.
Laid them out.
Yeah, laid them out for us and stuff. Yeah, him and that whole gang of talented musicians that used to, or singer-songwriters that used to hang out together. Him, like Steve Earle was another one that was in that group.
Really young then. There's you've probably seen it, Heart-Worn Highways.
Yep.
The documentary, which is 1977, and it's outlaw country,
really?
In Texas. So it was not taking the big pop stuff, and it was going what's being played in the small clubs. And Steve Earle's 17 in it, Rodney Crowell's in it, Townes Van Zandt, and
Guy Clark.
Yes,
Yeah.
and some others too. But it's it's
Emmylou,
so good.
Emmylou Harris.
There's a little clip, with Emmylou there too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just amazing to be in that room with all those prolific songwriters.
Oh, yeah. But it's so funny when you're surrounded by people of all the same level. It's just a hangout, right? Like it's nobody, standing above someone else. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Let me show you mine. Oh, that's great. And they all just jam together. Especially you see them all with bottles all over the table, and they're just playing around a kitchen party, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and then they also lean on each other and comment on each other's stuff, and you can respect.
Well, you got some of the, you got a lot of input there, And thinking about this song, guys. What do I do for this? And you got 5 other people with amazing skills. They're like, well, do this.
There's a funny moment in that documentary where Steve Earle starts playing a song, and it's called Missionaries. Oh, what's it called? Anyways, he starts singing it, and Guy Clark goes, "I got that written on the original lyrics written on a napkin, right?" And Steve Earle didn't release that song until the album Train a Comin' in 1995. So it's so funny. He wrote it, and it's great. He performs it on that in 1977 when he's 17, and yet he never put it on an album for 20 years later.
Crazy.
Yeah. So
that's what tells you how prolific he was. I mean, he was writing.
That could wait. You know what I mean? I like this one better. I like this one better.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's pretty cool. He's up there too for me personally.
Oh
yeah.
Well, there's a cool I put Joni Mitchell down because I think she was quite a great songwriter, right? And Laurel Canyon, that whole group that was there, like Neil Young, and of course all of the guys from the Hollies, and Buffalo Springfield, and Joni Mitchell, like just like crazy parties that they'd have. Oh, Mama Cost would always have everybody there. There's actually a biography or like a movie about the everybody that was there at the time, and they would have like these crazy parties, but then they'd all play like, so you could imagine what kind of music was being played by these crazy artists. You know, I just think it's so
inspiring
amazing.
each other.
Yeah,
You know what's so sad? Like, I mean, we grew up probably with it, I'm sure, but because I did, and so we're around the same age. But those parties where people brought instruments, right? Like, I remember being a kid and going to a parents' party, and there would be people with instruments, and they'd all be singing and dancing, like in the kitchen, and then cassettes and CDs, and we just brought albums, and no one played. And still, now it's actually frowned upon. Like, if you pick up a guitar at a party, people are like, "Oh, there's the guy with the guitar." I mean, like, you're like, okay, so you can't even do that. And it's just so strange because not strange, it's sad because I would love for people to participate and sing and like hop along and like swap songs and stuff like that. But it's
I find
just
that
a
the lake
playlist.
though, that like you're by a campfire, it sort of
a
goes
campfire you can do that at
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, you're
I
not
think
gonna
that's nice.
you're not gonna be at the campfire. Hey, break out the stereo.
No,
Oh no, somebody will bring a
Hey,
Bluetooth.
somebody bring the
Sometimes they have a
turntable.
Bluetooth speaker or something like that, and you're like, well,
Yeah, well, there's that too, right?
yeah. But my niece is an artist, and she sings quite lovely, and she brings the guitar out, and everybody gets excited because she's like, excellent, and she's family, right? So the same idea as if you probably did it at your
yeah, I definitely do that there for sure.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you're, and when I went to Newfoundland, actually, when I saw my friend, my best friend lives in Corner Brook, and we go there, and like they made fun of me because I was from Ontario, first of all, but that was a different thing. And they're like, yeah, you're from mainlander, And anyway, so they all have kitchen parties there all the time. That was they still do that, and they get the guitar out and they have a good time. And when we went to the wedding, it was a big party, of course. But then the day after, when they're opening the presents, it was a bigger party because they were like at a house, and there was a guy playing guitar, and there was somebody singing, and they're all dancing around. And people are like, it was like amazing. Like, it was like, this is so fun, Like, I think that people forget that you could put music on, and that's wonderful, but sometimes playing and having someone play and being a part of it is way more intimate, and you're just sort of enjoying that moment.
Very true.
Well, that's where, as a musician, doing house parties, like actually hired to play a gig at a house party is so much fun. Even if there's only, 20, 30 people there, it's so intimate because everybody is there specifically to listen to music. And they all know each other, so they can easily come up to you later and not be waiting in line, like, oh, I'm going to talk to that person when that person's done. Like they actually just, there is a group talking to you. It's pretty cool.
That is, I can imagine that'd be cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. For sure.
What you got?
What I got? I'm going to skip past that guy because we'll talk about him later. But I mean, like in the rock genre, you can't go far without talking about McCartney and Lennon, right?
Jeez.
Pretty prolific.
Pretty as a duo, and then as singular songwriters as well.
Could you imagine being a fly on the wall listening to the two of them speak about writing something? Like, as a songwriter, do you think that would be interesting to be in that room?
Well, have you watched that documentary by Peter Jackson on Apple TV with the Beatles? God, is it Get Back? Yeah, it's Get Back.
Okay.
It's 7 hours long. Have you not seen that?
Well, that's a Peter Jackson thing, right?
No, I haven't seen
You
it.
haven't seen that?
No. Must
So
watch.
it's the when they play on the rooftop of Columbia or the record, whatever, Apple Music, they're Apple Records, yeah. That famous video of them up on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's about them writing all those songs for that album. And George leaves the band at one point, like he quits, and they have to, and they're coming up with songs like right there in the studio. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I wrote this rhythm last night, and then he'll start humming something, and he actually came up with Get Back right there on film. So what you were just saying, watch that documentary. Yeah. It's in 3 parts, but it is unbelievable to see how they, like Ringo just sat back there and just was waiting to be cued, but and then George got upset because he wasn't contributing enough, and the dynamics are incredible. Check it out.
Do you were they toxic by the end of it? Do you think that because of the fame and they were so talented, like
there
all
was other circumstances, like you just said. You just mentioned one about George, right? Because he wasn't just again another prolific songwriter, right?
Yeah,
so you got 3 of them in the band, and then you got Ringo. Like Ringo, I mean, he wrote a few songs, but he wasn't as prolific as John and Paul and George, right? Yeah. But like George is looking at the other 2, going, guys, I have things to say too.
Yeah.
and Paul and John, from what I understand, were just like butting heads on everything. And then when you introduce who into the mix.
I was just going to say that you actually see it there. Like Yoko would sit as close as you and I through the whole thing, and like Paul at one point was like, "Why is she here? Like, we're working."
Yeah.
And like Linda, Paul's wife, was like not there. It was like this, we're working, and like, but it was like, no, she's got to be here. And I mean, he has a right to say that too. But like, when she started to comment, I think that's when Paul was like, our dynamic is changing. If someone outside of this four is,
especially when you have friction between the two of them to begin with, right? And then of course John is going to side with Yoko, so it's those two against Paul, and then kind of George is kind of going.
Yeah, I would think it'd be weird for George and Ringo for sure.
Absolutely.
Especially, but the thing is too, like, I mean, I can see Paul's side of it. Like, we've done pretty well, the four of us, right? Like, pretty well. Like the most album sales of all time. So why are we bringing in a new? Like, it's great that you're in love and you love this person, but this is our band. Like, this is the band. Like, so
it's the Office, is what like,
essentially, yeah.
So that's you see that stress show up a little bit there too, how they try to cope with it. So, and it's the last time they ever recorded together.
That's right. We didn't.
I know, we had a nice part there.
I tried
Bush beard.
Yes.
2 beards there.
Yeah, we got a couple of beards. Yeah.
So may I add one in? Just
absolutely,
because I'm super stoked about this one, and it's Prince. It's Prince. Okay, and you know how I feel about Prince.
I do.
It's I love the guy as a artist. I love the guy as a songwriter. I love everything he's put out. Really, honestly, like, I just think that he's just so talented. And I remember like somebody asking Eric Clapton, "What's it like being the best guitarist of all time?" And he goes, "I don't know. Ask Prince."
That's
amazing. There's that too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he could do it all. His songwriting, his singing, his guitar, like his musical instruments that he played, and engineering his own albums and stuff too, right? Like, he's doing everything.
Yeah. Well, he played every instrument on the band, right? Like, so I think Lenny does the same thing too, but like Lenny Kravitz. But isn't there like a vault of music that's coming out?
Well, that's the rumor, is that Prince has a vault full of stuff, and that the family is going to start to. He's got so much stuff that he wrote and recorded that he never.
That'd be so cool.
Put out there.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the family decides to do with his legacy. So hopefully we'll hear more of his stuff. It's hard to say.
What do you think, James?
Oh yeah, he's fantastic. I remember seeing a George Stroumboulopoulos interview with him back in the early 2000s or something, and he was talking about songwriting specifically, and he was talking about computers and like digital influence of music. And he says it's okay to use technology as long as you write the songs and and technology is a tool. But when technology starts writing the songs and you were the tool, because that's when there's a problem. And funny how we're talking about this, but with Chat GPT and AI coming in, where someone can just go, I like Johnny Cash and Motorhead, and then like make a song that they wrote together. An Oasis album just came out, or someone did it with ChatGPT or AI, I mean, and really like put this and said it was lost tapes, and it sounds so convincing, and believable that gosh, their lead singer there of Oasis, said, this stuff sounds awesome. Like it's a younger him or whatever, but
it's we got back together without getting back together.
Yeah.
Well, it works for that band, that's for sure.
Well,
but it's pretty crazy that.
Well, they did it with Drake too, didn't they?
Well, they've done it. They've done different things where Biggie's singing like a Jay-Z song, and then Tupac singing like also a Jay-Z song, and it's like, or a Snoop song or whatever it is. But they're doing it with every artist.
Yeah,
but it's weird. Yeah, and scary.
Very scary, because anyone who I'm in television too, right? And can just do that with the script and with the concept of a show, and just type in an idea and the computers go and give you a whole bunch that you can either work from or use directly. And it's scary for the artists moving ahead, how songwriting will change, and that's something they have to really clamp down on.
I think so too.
But it's happening so fast that these laws haven't existed, right?
Yeah.
So it's scary.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that in the end, people, like, hopefully they, you think about this. It's cool to have that technology, but I think a lot of things are just going to go back to the old ways. Like look at vinyl. I mean, vinyl came back. It was like out for so long and it came back, but it's different. This is a different thing.
It's what people like, cheap and fast, right? So
Yeah.
people like being entertained for cheap. Like, I don't want to go to the theater. I want to bootleg everything. You know what I mean? Or like download it from illegal sites, or
Yeah.
but they still want the entertainment, but they want it cheaper. And so then a producer or a studio or a record label or a broadcaster, if it's television,
Yeah.
how can I get this cheaper? And lower. But I don't need to pay a creator a royalty, or like, that's the scary part to me.
Yeah.
Is how that'll affect.
Yeah, it will probably just remove a lot of the artistry of it all. Really, I mean, it's sort of just all fake.
Well, think how much garbage people listen to. We were talking about good songwriters, but all the bad songwriting that's out there too that makes
Yeah.
huge amounts of money, right? And the general public, accept the mush, So
Yeah, that's true.
Especially,
They're just
especially
like-
these days, like with all the digital stuff and just like the minds, like they just 3 minutes. Okay, I'm good with that song. Let's move on.
Yo,
You know what I
skip,
mean?
skip,
Skip.
yeah.
Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Stairway wouldn't go nowadays.
Oh, it
you
would
know what I
not.
mean? And that's a pretty good piece of music.
It was okay.
Yeah.
I was at a club in Florida for an animation conference, and went to this one bar, and a DJ started playing. He started playing classics, right? I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So let's say AC/DC comes on, like Back in Black, but he would only play 30 seconds of every song, and then you're like, oh, did he skip to the next one? And it's like, oh, it's Summer '69. Okay, and you dance. Oh, skipped again.
Oh.
And you're like, oh, this is the society that we're just only taking the hook of each one. And he did that all night for 4 hours.
Brutal.
Yeah.
That's not fun at all.
No, that was like just when you're getting into a song and then you just bleed it into another,
Oh, I hate that.
No, if you did 10 minutes of that and you just kind of did this little,
Well, if you do a little mashup for
That's
like,
right.
like you
Yeah.
said, for a few minutes, then that's great.
oh
Like,
my God, all night.
but like, no.
Yeah, and maybe you thought that too when you got there. Oh, we just came in and they're just doing a mashup.
Yeah.
Of a couple of rock songs, but then
Yeah.
4 hours later you're like shit faced and like pissed off.
Yeah.
Like
It's
just
exactly. But I think, like with all these artists that we've got on our list and stuff, I mean, some of these guys are amazing in their time, right? Like I've got Chuck Berry on the list. I mean, nobody seems to remember him as a songwriter,
He's on
right?
my list.
Yeah.
He's on my list.
You know what I mean? Nobody, like if you're talking songwriters, the big names come up that we'll talk about, but like a Chuck Berry doesn't come up.
No, you wouldn't
He
think of
doesn't.
it. And I love Chuck Berry.
And you
so
know
yeah.
who else that doesn't come up that surprises me is Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
Does not come up. If you're talking, if you ask somebody their top 5, even if it's somebody like my age, we're gonna go with the obvious ones that we've been talking about. But like these guys get left at the wayside. And I mean, Buddy Holly, really? Like,
Yeah.
It's probably because of the short lifespan that they had of doing the profession, right? Like,
right?
I mean, Hank Williams died at 27 as well, too. And
Yes.
he's hailed as like the godfather of country music, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Yeah.
what they did in their amount of time is just so concentrated
Yeah.
of quality, right? At a young age, too. They
Seriously.
didn't have to mature into it.
How did
Yeah.
Hank die?
Alcoholism and
Yeah,
New
overdose.
Year's Eve, he died in the back of his car.
Yeah, back of his limo, and he was a heroin guy as well. So he was strung out a lot.
Ooh,
Yeah.
In
27, man. That's
50s.
27. And another
27
great singer
Club.
that's not really on a list, but Kurt Cobain is somebody that comes to my mind who died at 27 also.
Seriously?
Same idea. Like
And he's not on the
short,
list.
Short period.
And like I'm scrolling through these lists, and it's all arbitrary, and we're not choosing. But yeah, like he's not on the list. Amy Winehouse, like all these prolific songwriters.
Again, it goes back to that time. Like there
Yeah.
wasn't a long time. Yeah, and you, James pointed at this one. I'll just say Randy Newman.
Oh,
Yeah.
the
Like-
stories from him, I know.
Yeah,
So amazing.
yeah.
But you throw that one out there again too, and like
Nobody you'll be like who, and then they'll play like every like the Cleveland Indians song from Major League.
Yeah. Or
like,
Toy Story.
Toy Story.
Yeah.
Like he's won like multiple Academy Awards,
Yeah.
I think,
Right,
right?
Grammys
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, he's a very
Yeah.
prolific songwriter.
92 nominations from the he's 92 nominations from the Academy Awards. 92.
Wow.
I don't know how many he's won. Probably 10, probably, but
Well, that's still a good
92.
ratio though.
That's a lot, man. 92 is a lot.
I'd be
Yeah.
happy with 30.
Yeah,
See?
exactly. 50.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with one.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, that's
There
what
we
you
No, you wouldn't, because then you'd want 2.
Yeah, you're right. Then I'd want 3, and then it just goes on and on.
Yeah, 92. It's like he doesn't even show up anymore.
Yeah, that's-
seriously. Nah, who cares? What else you got?
I got Dolly, and then I wrote Michael Jackson as well.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson to me was like a reminds me of my youth. You know, I remember the Thriller album and having it on cassette and putting it on and doing the moonwalk and everything. But like that was probably one of his best. That is his best album, I think. But certainly a talent.
Yeah.
You know.
And you look at, I'm just going to use Michael Jackson specifically, but like people's childhood and how they grew up and how that turns them into a songwriter, right?
Mhm.
And how it could change. Like he had a hard life of being a child entertainer and being forced by his parents to like entertain and dance. And then he was the best one, right? So he had to carry his brothers,
Mhm.
like that whole time
Yeah.
to
And the youngest too, right?
the youngest,
other
he
than
was
the girls, but yeah.
yeah, he was like the cute one and the talented one. He could sing and he could dance, and like he needed to do the Jackson 5, but his brothers were like not making any money, right?
Yeah, they
So-
wouldn't have done it without him.
But that pressure to have as a young person to still then write these songs that are so mature, right? And I'm just looking at your list because it's right there, but Cash, for instance, or even Elton John, like being a gay man in the late '60s and '70s, and like being so flamboyant in his presentation and everything, and writing such amazing hits. Well, he co-wrote, right?
Yeah,
he
with
did,
Topin.
Yeah, Topin did
Yeah.
the lyric, and he did the
And he's not even, and it's not even a mention there. It's just Elton John. There's no Bernie Taupin.
Oh yeah, it's right there on.
Yeah, it's in the
Oh, and this-
blurb, but it's just like Elton John.
Yeah,
And
and you have to
yeah.
accept that as.
But he's the star.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
get it, and
but he didn't-
that you're right. Topin is definitely part of that.
He didn't write
writing,
those
right.
big songs without Topin.
Correct.
So-
but they're not sung the way they're sung.
No,
without
very
him.
true.
So
He
you
is
got-
the
you kinda-
performer
yeah.
for sure.
So Tom Waits, for instance,
Yes.
right? Well, I love this quote. I like melodies. No, I like beautiful melodies telling me terrifying terrible things.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's upside down.
That's okay. I got
But he, I think it was at Swordfish Trombones, which was maybe his 4th record at the time, and that's when he met his wife Kathleen Brennan, and he ended up. She was in like English literature and like super intelligent with writing.
Mhm.
He would give every song to her and go, "What do you think?" And she'd say, "You can do better." And he said, "Oh my God!" He'd get so frustrated. "What do you think? You can do better." And from every song he's ever written from then till now is co-written by her.
Nice.
On every album, it says all songs written by Tom Waits and Kathleen. And she's, you don't even probably know what she looks like, right?
yeah.
Like I do because I'm a huge fan of him, but he's Tom Waits, prolific songwriter.
But that's the thing, right? Like you don't know, like my God, he's awesome, but you don't know the backstory. You don't know who's standing behind him, going, you know what, honey, you could do
Yeah.
better. You can do better, and you will do better.
Yeah.
And it's just
It's that push.
Yeah, you see him like Leonard Cohen, another amazing, prolific Canadian songwriter, right? Who was behind him? Did he have a wife saying, "Honey, you could do better"? Who knows?
I think he did at the
Yeah.
beginning, right? But he was also very poetic. And,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. He was another special character that I didn't have on my list for some reason.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I said, the lists are arbitrary, right? Like I got Smokey Robinson on my list. and that's huge in the '60s, right?
Yeah, he was amazing. There is Kurt Cobain, but Tom Petty comes to mind.
Yeah.
Like even with that Stevie Nicks, like Stevie Nicks is an amazing writer herself, but like he wrote, "Stop Dragging My Heart Around,"
Yep.
and the story is that Jimmy Iovine had no single for Stevie Nicks, and they both had put out the album the same time, and the songs on both albums, but Tom Petty was like, "Well, Jimmy took my song and just gave it to Stevie Nicks, and then she put it out, and of course it was a huge hit." And he was like laughing about it because he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
He still gets paid.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention he's just like, I don't think he cares about that. I think he just
No.
enjoys playing
Exactly.
music. Right?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and then we're looking at these lists, and I'm trying not to get too aggravated by the listings of like number 1, number 2, number 3, because this list that I got right here, Bob Marley's number 11, and I think he should be like top 3.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say.
In my
I was
mind,
like, I thought you were
right?
gonna say he should be.
No.
No, he wrote some crazy bad, but Peter Tosh was a big part of that
He
too.
was him and the
Yeah.
Wailers, yeah.
I love Peter Tosh.
Yeah, but I mean, again, there's another one where writing with somebody else and him writing on his own, and his wife Rita in the background, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another. Well, we should talk about your guy, your other guy, the one that's not on your shirt.
Oh, Dylan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fairly good songwriter.
So I've
the
read
okayest.
so much on him, right? Like, and that's what changed me actually when I was so into punk rock. And one of the big bands I loved, one of the bands that were big to me were Bad Religion, right?
Yeah, of course.
And Greg Graffin and Brett Gurewitz and their songwriting. how intellectual it was, how deep, and it just made you think. And I needed a dictionary, you know, like
Yeah.
to follow it. So then when I got introduced to Bob Dylan, which like at 30 something, you know, like, or maybe it was 28, I had never really known, like, yes, I knew it, but it was like, oh, that's one of those old guys, you know, and then found out about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, his stuff is unbelievable,
Yeah.
right? And then finding out how he transformed into a songwriter, being someone that like fell in love with music but didn't have an image for himself, and he ended up finding Woody Guthrie, hearing a record and going, wow, I love this. And then he learned every Woody Guthrie song, dressed like Woody Guthrie. Like, he's 17 years old. Like, this is what kids do, right?
Yeah.
And then to go and try to find his idol. And when he found him in this hospital in New York or New Jersey, and he had Parkinson's, and he would sit there and play songs for his hero in a hospital bed. And then he finally thought, I'm going to write a song for Woody. And it's called A Song for Woody. And that was his first original composition. And after he cracked that moment of like writing his own song, he never looked back, right?
Yeah.
And that's on his first record, which is all cover songs. There's only 2 originals on it, Talking New York and a song to Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie was the first, and then the next album, like, he exploded because of that.
And the thing about
influence.
Dylan, like, you know, because you're a singer and a songwriter, so you appreciate what he's done and how he did it. A lot of people can't get past his voice. And there's a lot of, like, Christopherson's the same way, right? An amazing songwriter, singer, a little bit more of a, you have to take a little bit more of a time to get used to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's 2 ways to look at it. There's, you know, you're looking at it as you're comparing them to other singers.
Mhm.
And then you also have to look at it in the fact that he's expressing himself the way he's expressing himself, right? And I understand both sides of it, but I like Dylan's voice. I think it's a little bit different for sure. I mean, there's nobody that sounds like him. His son actually has a better voice than he
Jacob.
does.
Yeah.
But definitely a big Bob Dylan fan. I like all of his songs. I mean,
But just like there are a few out there that are, you know,
Yeah, he had, when you have a career of 65 years,
Mhm.
you're going to have slumps, right? Where
Yeah.
stuff doesn't sound as good as the other, but every album has gems on it for
Yeah.
sure. But to me, it's like
65 years, crazy man.
yeah, it's like an actor, right? Going, well, are they good looking enough, right? And it's like, but they're amazing. Yeah, but they're not going to sell because they don't have that, like,
James Angus.
yeah, exactly.
Jawline.
Jawlines. Yeah, James.
do we wish that? No.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
but if you
man.
see the acting from them and how it's portrayed, right?
Yes,
You're like,
yeah.
wow, this is incredible, and you can.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're a music purist and stuff, you get past a lot of things, right? Like, you know, like Dylan, yeah, he's not so-and-so. He doesn't sing like so-and-so, but listen to the lyrics.
Yeah.
And there's that great line I like, that sometimes you need the lyrics and sometimes you need the music.
Yeah.
And
That's a good line.
yeah, it's a great line I read one day. And it resonates, right? Like, sometimes it's true. Sometimes you just want to listen to something heavy and just,
Yeah.
and then the next time it's like, you know what? I want to listen to the words now.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a nice way to put it. What about Bruce Springsteen?
What about him?
Like, he was pretty good.
He's okay.
I love Springsteen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
The River, like, I think that was is that his first album?
No.
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 Greetings from Asbury Park is his first album.
Yeah, and then the E Street Shuffle
Yeah.
was the second. They both
Yes.
bombed.
Yeah.
They
Amazing
weren't very
story
good.
about him too is that he had a 3-record deal on Columbia, and you know he was going to have to work in the steel mill with his dad, you know, and he put out these 2 records, acclaimed,
Mm-hmm.
but commercially flopped, right? And from there, he had 1 record of the deal left, and they're like, if this doesn't sell, then like, he's like, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be working with my dad for the rest of my life in a steel mill.
Yeah.
And that's when he put out Born to Run, and there's a documentary on it because they were filming during that time, that he just was so petrified of failure, right? That he just kept going back and did it for so long, and then he finally released it, and it exploded. And
Yeah. And he's been like that since. Like, he's a very much, it's like, no, we're going to do it again. And
He's
we're going
known
to do
for
it
his
again.
work ethic.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
well, that was the thing too, because he kind of transformed from the 70s. He was just a scraggly guy and like really small, and all of a sudden in the 80s he's like chiseled, and he's got the guns and stuff, and he's doing 3.5-hour shows,
Yeah.
and it's just insane.
Yeah. He's still in good shape.
He's in great shape, and
70
he's still
years old.
he's still
He's
putting
come-
out relevant music too.
Yeah.
You know.
And I lost my thought.
That's okay.
And there it goes.
And gone.
Thank
with-
God.
It'll come back. Neil Young.
Yeah. He's a good one.
He's amazing. He's
Yeah.
another with the voice that some people cannot handle,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But to me, it's it's a Neil Young song. When something stands above everything else,
Mhm.
right? That's what is unique to me, because there's songwriting that is like so intellectual. It's just like playing music too. You can have something that like a virtuoso on guitar, but it's so over everyone's heads,
Yeah.
right? And then you can have someone who can strum 3 chords but can string together a rhythm that is just can't get it out of your brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why like Neil Young's voice is so unique that when you hear it, you know that's a Neil Young song.
But it's also an instrument too, right? Your
Oh.
voice. Your voice is also an instrument.
Yeah, Tom
But-
Waits said my well, he says my lyrics. He goes, my lyrics are my lead instrument.
Yeah.
That's what I love that line.
Yeah.
That's a
he's-
good line.
well, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
that's what his
That's
Focus
your
is-
credo too.
that would be mine for 2. Yeah, like I'm not a great guitar player. I'm not a great singer, but I love this. I'm proud of my stories that I tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I focus on that.
exactly.
On your strong suit.
Exactly. What about this fella, Brian Wilson?
I like Brian Wilson for
Yeah,
sure.
little
And
big-
Beach Boys.
Yeah, another one that was on the list, and yeah,
Well, I think he's written some doozies, that's for sure, to say the
he
least.
wrote a few.
And with like, and this is one of those people that had troubles, right? Like
Yeah.
socially, and like that's what I was going to say about Springsteen too. Is Springsteen suffered from depression,
Mhm.
even though he's a massive superstar. Never thought his stuff was good enough, and that's one thing about songwriting too, is being able to write something down and keep it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, and not second guess, and finally release something, not being scared, and that's tough. You
Yeah.
know,
It's a,
to be judged. You know?
well, I mean, yeah, and then you get to a point, hopefully, in life where you just go, I don't care anymore. I like this song. I'm going to release it. If you don't like it, well, you can listen to other stuff.
Right, and then the opposite can happen of then the success, and then how you deal with that. Like Kurt
Yeah.
Cobain, for instance, right?
Correct, yeah.
Didn't want people to like his songs that bad. He did originally, and then he was like, whoa, all these people that used to beat me up in school like my songs, I don't want them listening to it. And
Yeah.
that becomes the trouble.
Yeah, that was definitely his thing, and it's funny how Dave Grohl tells the story of how like they did the record and then they went to Ireland, and then when they came back, they were the biggest rock star,
Yeah.
You're
like
like,
biggest
what
band in the
happened?
world,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that's like okay,
It's funny.
interesting.
It's fickle, right?
Yeah, Dave
His
Grohl.
biography is
Dave Grohl.
great too.
Cobain's, yeah.
No, I was
Grohl?
Dave Grohl's
Oh,
too.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think they ever did a Kurt Cobain one.
storyteller. There's Heavier Than Hell. I think obviously he didn't write it.
It's ghost
Grohl.
written. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's called Heavier Than Hell.
Yeah.
I read it way back, like in the '90s, but
What else you got there?
Fogerty, John Fogerty.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Never
Right.
stops.
Nope.
Right?
No.
Yeah,
I think that keeps them going. You
Yeah.
know, what would you do if you couldn't write music? I think it'd be depressing for you almost. You know.
Break dance, I guess.
Yeah. Go back.
Bring out the card.
Go back to skateboarding.
Yeah.
Bring out the cardboard box and do some breakdancing in my
That's
front
right.
yard.
Fogerty, when you talk about getting older, though, it's like there's new stories because your life starts to change, right? You start seeing your mortality, right? I mean, I'm assuming that you start writing in a different. You're not writing about being young and wild and doing this. You're starting to talk about like Johnny Cash taking Hurt, right?
Yeah.
It's just really about approaching the end and what you did years ago and memories, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's a whole new topic
Yeah, even like
to pull from, source.
Well, you've always like it's a progression right through life. Like when you start out, you're singing about like young people things, and then you get into your middle age and you're talking
Well, you have
about
kids or whatever.
So-
right?
exactly,
Like,
and
things
your
change.
focus changes and stuff.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
You could see it.
My first song I ever wrote was called "The Couch," and it was about a couch in the basement at my house.
There you
Right?
go.
And that was when I was 16, and it was a punk song or whatever. And then like the last song I wrote about was worrying about my daughter driving her motorhome across country, that something could happen to her. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Was
No.
she with Alwar's daughter?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Because
Yeah.
they got a dolphin or something, right?
oh, wow, yeah, they got
Yeah,
a Toyota Dolphin 1986, and
Yeah.
Sick.
we left for 7 months and just
Wow.
sold it. So
Crazy.
yeah, sold it in a day.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
I'm gonna throw a name out there that probably nobody's gonna know, except if you're a musical person. Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, and they wrote a few gems. One called Jailhouse Rock.
Really?
Yeah, for Elvis. They also wrote "Loving You," the song "Don't" that Elvis does.
Wow.
It's a great tune. I love that. So yeah, I mean,
You wrote
prolific
for
songs.
Elvis a lot.
Well, they wrote for Elvis. Elvis back in the day, the story was that if he took a song, it became his song, right? It became part of his catalog. So these guys, like Nashville, they have songwriting houses. Excuse me. But these guys were prolific, like not just with Elvis in particular, but I mean, he was one of their bigger artists that they wrote for.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I'm choking over it.
Yeah, you're gonna make it.
Excuse me.
When you say that about Elvis, because you had Dolly Parton on your list,
Uh-huh.
do you know the story?
Oh, I do. Tell it.
Okay, you want to hear it? Or?
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm trying to remember what song it is. It's this.
It was Coat of Many Colors, and
No.
it's I Will Always Love You. It was both.
What? Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So he wanted those songs,
Mhm.
and she had yet to have like a hit, or so she was just a young songwriter, and it's like, yeah, but he wants the rights to the song, like in that, and she said no, and they're like, wait a minute, this is Elvis is going to play your song, like how are you not going to turn that down? He can play it, but it's my song, and then they said, well, he wants it, and she said nope,
Yeah. So he
and
never
walked
did.
away.
Stuck to her guns.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
isn't
then
that
when-
awesome?
And then
It is
Whitney
awesome.
recorded it, but I mean, she didn't take the rights away from. So
No.
Dolly retains the rights to all of her songs.
Yeah, so I Will Always Love You, she actually gave to Porter Wagner, because she was on the Porter Wagner show,
Mhm.
and her career was starting to take off and be bigger than his,
Yep.
and she felt really guilty because he gave her such a start and he believed in her, so she gave him that song,
Mhm.
and I think she didn't get the rights back until he died or something.
I believe a lot of people believe the song was written about him.
She said she goes, she didn't deny it, but she
Mhm.
said, I did love him, and I
Yeah.
always would and appreciate it.
Mhm.
He was hard on her too, like this is the 70s, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting stories. There's such stories behind every song, right? That's
Yeah.
what's incredible. They come from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Every song does. What do you got there?
Merle,
Oh,
Haggard.
for you.
oh,
Merle Haggard, baby.
love Merle.
38 number one singles.
Wow, eh?
Remember the obviously Nashville Songwriters, Country Music, and Oklahoma Music Halls of Fame.
Halls, okay.
And he also got a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. But pretty prolific writer.
Yep.
Mama Tried, and like even the one I love Poncho and Lefty, like when him and Willie, who was also another decent songwriter who turned 90 yesterday.
90, yeah.
But like that's for me, Poncho and Lefty hits me right in the heart because I was Roscoe, my brother was Poncho, and I was always Lefty.
You actually played that?
No, he
Is
didn't.
it-
But it was like the little song we had for sure.
Wow. So he didn't write that.
Nope.
Townes Van Zandt did.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Oh
and
shit. Okay.
yeah, which is cool because someone like Townes, who was an amazing singer-songwriter, never had the fame. He shot himself in the foot all the time because he had his own problems, but he wrote stuff that Lyle Lovett covered, that
Yep.
Emmylou Harris, Rodney Crowell,
Yep.
Guy Clark, Steve Earle, all those guys covered it, and one of them was Poncho and Lefty, which made him a lot of money. An amazing moment was in we were talking about Chris Christopherson earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The movie, what did we say he was in? Oh, Stars Born.
Stars Born.
He was. Oh no, it was. Sorry, that's is the movie he was in. But he did one called Songwriter, and there's a point where he's playing on stage, and Townes Van Zandt was in the audience, and he said, "I want to introduce who wrote this song." And it's Townes Van Zandt, and he stood up, and they filled the place with songwriters. And he goes, "That's a songwriter," and that's where you know someone's good is when
Yeah.
the songwriters are saying, "I want to play his music over my own."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
So,
makes sense that
Yeah.
that would be.
Well,
Pretty amazing.
and they all kind of rubbed off on each other. Like, Crowell, Clark, Emmylou Harris. They all hung out together with Townes Van Zandt. Steve Earle. Like, they all, got stuff from, Steve did a whole album of Townes Van Zandt songs.
So Stars Born kind of about Townes Van Zandt. Would you? I know the story comes
Yeah.
from before that, but he sort of lived that life, right?
Mhm.
Like the way that how Bradley Cooper is struggling through addiction, and I would imagine it was the same story. I never saw the one with Chris Christopherson, so I'll have to watch it.
well, there's one even before that too.
Yeah, there's three of them.
Okay,
Yeah, in the
so then
40s.
then it isn't about Townes for sure. Then.
Yeah, no, not that actual movie, but.
Yeah, we've got I'm just scrolling through the list here, and we could talk about Townes Van Zandt for hours, but I mean, there's so many, and there's so many different genres and stuff, but one that kind of bothers me again, that he's so low on the list, is Van Morrison.
Oh wow.
Wow, good
And he's
one.
still going,
Yeah.
still writing. Yeah.
And I don't get it. I understand, you gotta have somewhere, you gotta be somewhere on the list, and, I mean, the numbers don't matter, but I mean, Yeah, it kind of throws me off. And then
Right.
Robert Johnson too.
Yeah, who released like 22 songs in one recording. Like
Yeah.
they did one recording of him. He had 22 tracks. And
Talk about like doing it when he was young and then just dying.
murdered, right?
Yeah.
He was murdered. Yeah.
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 Stabbed.
Yeah. Because
James, do you want to play something?
yes, you do.
It's yes, I do. It's because after talking about all those singer-songwriters and then like
Yeah, we're
putting
gonna,
me on the
Yeah, but like.
Well, we don't have them. We don't have them here
Well,
with
you're
us.
just such
We
a
have
great
you.
friend of the show, and you're a great songwriter, so we'd love to hear.
Okay, so now I gotta narrow down. I wonder if I should play like the most recent thing I wrote, just because it's so fresh, and I can tell. Yeah, maybe I would.
Let's do
There
it.
we go.
So
He's got a big book
yeah, it's
full of songs.
a lot of pages. So this is I wrote this one at the beginning of April, so it's a month old now, and I was just telling you. I was just where should I put this for this kind of thing? Do you have any idea? Should I
Nope.
point down or?
I think you'd be fine where it is.
Yeah, you'd be fine.
Okay. So just to tell you where stories come from, my daughter, I was telling you, she was in the motorhome and she was driving back across the country, and 7 months away, as a father, you worry, right? And then it's the home stretch, and you're like, oh my god, like just come home. And then she's in a 1986 vehicle that's got issues, And I ended up writing this song, and I write dark music, like sad stuff, and it's just what comes to me, and because I'm worrying, right? So I end up writing a song that's about worry, and it's called As She Drove Away. So she kissed him on the face. She said, Dad, don't worry, I'll be back soon, you'll see. I just need to be free. She left a card that read, I can't thank you for all you did. And I know you wish I'd stay, but you raised me this way. And as she drove away, these words burned in his brain. And a tear ran down his face. He was proud of who she became. She called every couple of days to let him know she was okay. She'd tell him of all the things she'd seen out in this world, right where she needed to be. His phone rang, he awoke to a stranger's voice that spoke. It was an officer asking if she was his daughter. His heart sunk in his chest, and his lungs gasped for breath. Out on the interstate, someone strayed into her lane. Mix.
awesome sauce.
Fantastic.
Thank you, James.
So I showed my girlfriend. She's like, "You cannot play that until she gets home. You can't show anybody that until she gets home." And so she came home, and then I showed her. But it came from worry, right? And so you're just, and there's an emotion that I had to get out, and I got it out through song, and I had to remind myself as she was traveling. I'm like, if something did happen, she's doing what she wants to do. This is the life she wants to have. This is where she wants to be, and what, obviously hope she'd come home safe, and she did. But she's living her life, and that's
all you can ask,
yeah.
really.
So you have young kids, right?
7 months old.
7 months. That's the youngest or the first?
Twins.
Twins. Oh, boy.
Yeah, they amaze me every day, to be honest.
Yeah.
Is it different? Like, I'm sure you felt the same way when your kids were born. Your first one, I'm sure, but even the second one, and you have two, right?
Yes, two.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's a love I've never felt before.
And you won't and you had two together. Do you have kids?
Nope.
Okay. It's a love that you think, can I love another one as much? Can I share this much love? Like, you've got two at the same time, so it's different. But when you have one and then 3 years later or whatever have another one, you're like, how can I love another thing this much? You do,
Yeah,
but
of course.
But you question, because there's so much love for a child, and you'll do anything to protect something.
Yeah. Well, even you telling me the story of like them going away and having like 7 months away is a long time, especially if that's their first trip. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm going to be at that point sometime in my life, and it's like, you worry. I mean, I can imagine that song came from somewhere like that.
Yeah. So, thanks for letting me play.
Buddy, it was awesome.
Thanks for playing it.
We always appreciate you coming in and
Yes,
playing
sir.
for us. So.
No problem.
Chris Stapleton, one last one, just add in
Oh,
there.
okay.
Didn't he write before he became?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few of them that did that, right? Like they were known as songwriters. Garth Brooks,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
before he started performing, he was like he was one of the song houses. That's what he did, and he sold shoes, like cowboy boots and stuff. Like that's how he made ends meet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't I think he was 38.
Yeah.
When he finally maybe I should try this,
Yeah.
And he wasn't, he was the most handsome or most in shape. Like, he wasn't magazine star power that way. His songs were so powerful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what sells. Yeah, that's what connects.
In the end, I mean, it's all about the music, right?
Yeah.
And connecting with individuals, right?
I would think Stapleton, sorry to cut you off,
No.
but Stapleton was probably the same way. He probably didn't have the same confidence performing, even though that guy's voice is maybe the best ever.
Yeah.
He's
There's
up
many
there
great
for sure,
voices, but I find his voice like melts butter when he's like.
Yeah. Now, I think he came up when pop country was so popular, right? And it was all good looks and sleeveless shirts with muscles, and
Yeah.
And so him probably being larger, and it wasn't until his music produced so much that it's like, wow, I think I could
And
do this.
unfortunately, Nashville went that way, right? They made it more of a fashion show than actual talent.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been like that. If you think Conway Twitty and now they were great songs too, but it was a lot of flash, right?
Yep.
And
Well, that was the Nashville. Well, that was the Nashville when the outlaw country kind of sprung up, right? Because they had these polished acts, and they were all beautiful, and they had their hair slicked back, and they looked good in suits and stuff. And then you got the guys wearing the jeans and the t-shirts and stuff. Yeah, you're not Nashville country. You're like more.
Yeah.
You're Bakersfield, or you're from Texas. You're not Nashville.
Like Willie Nelson,
Yeah.
he was. If you look at old Willie, clean suit and tie, and just
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean. And then he.
Blue sky.
Yeah. Well, he actually had his voice.
And same with Merle. Merle was the same way when he first started out. He had the shirt and tie and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
and his short haircut and stuff. Waylon Jennings, Johnny, they all kind of, and then they just graduated away.
They found weed.
Yeah.
And changed everything.
They found Willie.
They stopped cutting their hair, their beards, and let's go on tour.
They found Willie and David Allan Coe, and that was the end of that.
Oh God, David Allen.
Hey man, maybe it's the key though. Like, Willie just smoked weed and didn't drink or anything, so he's 90 now.
Yeah, and
Cruising.
still playing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
With the same guitar.
Would you see him now if you could?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would love to
In
see
a
him.
heartbeat.
I know.
I would go see Willie.
He just released an album last year too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. And his son Lucas is incredible. I love Lucas.
Yeah.
Nelson. Like, like some of his music's
Yep.
amazing. He was in The Star Is Born. He was the one that in the band, and he
Yep.
like basically taught Bradley Cooper how to play guitar. And,
Being in a movie, like we're gonna pay you to be an awesome guitar player, and sing. You get all those, or kung fu if it's in like.
Well, Bradley Cooper really committed to, I think,
Yeah.
to playing guitar, especially and singing. I mean, even Lucas Nelson said his guitar is about a 5, but his singing was about an 8. He did very well. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, even
Well, that-
Gaga
yeah,
liked
Lucas
his
liked
singing
it.
too, right? Like she was like, he's amazing.
Yeah, she's got a pretty good voice too.
Yeah, she's pretty talented. And there's another songwriter too, right? that we
Yeah,
can talk
yeah,
about.
super
I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours now about all the songwriters, but we don't have that much time.
I think we'll shut it right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're good.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
Well,
again
thank you.
for James coming out and giving us his
Check out
Input.
his stuff too. Go
Yeah,
go
seriously.
find his stuff.
Oh damn it! You know what? Go to my Instagram and check that stuff out. All my online stuff is 8 years old until
Yeah.
the new stuff comes out.
Okay, so Instagram.
Yeah.
All right, till next time.
Thanks, guys.